refugees are arriving in the United Kingdom in dinghies, having set off from Calais and crossed the English Channel. And very sadly, not all of them make it. There was a boy of 16 from Sudan who was found to have drowned attempting to make that journey only recently. And are these people refugees or are they migrants? And the language we use to describe these people seems to depend very much on our politics and whether or not we like these people or we want them here, whomever we is in this context. But a lot of people have been very quick to point out that there is nothing illegal about crossing the channel in a dinghy, and that refugees have the right to seek refuge in any country of their choice. And I suppose you don't actually become a refugee, and technically, until you are granted refugee status by whichever country it is you've sought asylum in. So until that point, I guess these are potential refugees. We can use the umbrella term migrant, but all this language gets so politicized, and yet again we seem to be going to one extreme to the other. The virtue signalers are telling us that there's nothing wrong with it, let them all in, there's nothing illegal about any of it, they are all refugees and they're all welcome, refugees welcome. And then on the other side you've got the people saying we're full, we can't fit anymore, we've had enough, close the borders, I don't want any foreigners in my country. And some of the Tory government would be more inclined to that position, I would expect. However, they are opening the borders potentially to 3 million Hong Kong Chinese citizens who will be welcome to pitch up here. The British government have made it accessible for citizens in Hong Kong to attain British citizenship. So there's 3 million refugees, if you like, that could make their way, escaping the evil Chinese Communist Party over in Hong Kong, China. Meanwhile, there are people washing up dead on the British shores, and these refugees are not welcome. Maybe because Hong Kong is a very affluent and modern former British colony, we're not so worried about those refugees making their way here to the homeland, to Great Britain. But what about the individuals leaving France and arriving here? Well, I know we said that refugees can seek asylum in whichever country they wish, but France is not a war zone. If you're fleeing France to arrive in the UK, you're not actually fleeing a war zone, are you? And ironically, this will be disappointing now for a lot of the people that voted Brexit. If you voted Brexit because of some kind of hope of distancing yourself from all these foreigners and the refugees on the continent and just sort of putting up an extra layer of security, if the UK were still part of the European Union, France would be obliged to take back these asylum seekers or migrants had we not left the EU. So don't get me wrong, there were many good reasons for voting for Brexit, but if one of your reasons for voting Brexit, and I think it may have been in a lot of cases, was to have fewer refugees over here, then that hasn't really worked out in this instance, has it? So they're arriving across the channel. Some of them are not even making it, and you've got to wonder why people that had already made it all the way to France for whatever reason, whatever they were fleeing, whatever poverty, persecution or war there is in these countries, in Sudan, for example, if you've made it as far as France, would you still want to carry on to the UK? And there's a variety of reasons for that. And I think one of the major factors is that most people who are bilingual, if they speak another language, it's probably English. Used to be that French was the second language of the world, but now it's English, and that's because of the historic role of Britain in the world and the British Empire, and of course the American Empire now. Britain went from being the number one power in the world, it's now America, but they're still an English speaking country, so I think language plays a huge part. Also, the UK is a more liberal country than France. There's no compulsion to carry an ID card in the UK, whereas there is in France and other countries. So the United Kingdom has always been a very attractive destination for people from the third world, whether they are fleeing from war or they are economic migrants who wish to find a better life for themselves, as everyone does. But I wonder, do the people that are adamant that they are refugees and that they are welcome and that they are not doing anything wrong, all of them without exception, do you believe in having countries at all? Do you believe in having borders? If you are, I don't know, a communist that believes in permanent revolution, that the borders will all go one day, does it matter whether they are refugees or migrants? Presumably you just believe that everyone should have the right to live everywhere. Presumably you don't believe in countries. Imagine there's no countries, as John Lennon said. So it would be interesting if the people on that extreme side of the argument were clear and told us why everybody is just welcome. Is the world just one country? And if that's your belief, that's fine. And at the other end of the spectrum, I would be curious to know, if you don't welcome any foreigners, are you bothered about the rich, wealthy, westernized Hong Kong citizens making their way to the United Kingdom, but you don't care about, or rather you're not happy about Middle Easterners, North Africans making their way? Is it cultural? Are you racist? I know that's a very terrible word these days, but some people are racist, and let me know if you are in the comments.